It's
Recording in progress.
This is January 2nd, hopefully. Okay. Well, we'll see how our little technology parade works here today. All right. The first webinar of 2026. Now, whenever I do a talk in January of 2026, where it's a webinar, teaching desert pencil, doing a private gig, I usually do something about what can we do this year to make money? How can we enhance our lives? It's January, looking forward, all that kind of stuff. So I started out today's webinar talking about real estate and different things that we can do as investors, as brokers, and so forth, going into markets to make money. And I'm very much a value add guy as opposed to a buy and hold guy. So we had some discussion about land development, which is something I know a fair amount about. And so I talked about a small lot development scenario that I was in last year. We talked about some different things that people can do buying improved properties to add value to them. And we had that kind of an open discussion. It was really good. And that sort of segued into some talk about demographics, which when we look forward in the market, so we'll say the next 20 years, demographics are going to have a big effect, big impact. So understanding that now I think is really important. And that took us into another discussion about care facilities, assisted living, mental care, that kind of thing. Now, I've never built those, but I know what they are and how they work. I've done a fair amount of research on them, so I shared that. And I wrapped up really just making a very basic, important, and symbolic point about how anybody can make money in any market doing anything, and that is solving other people's problems and bringing some level of value. Okay, so that's what we talked about today in the Desert Pencil webinar. So today what I thought we would do is talk about real estate for 2026. And one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this is because it's come to my attention and yours as well. And we just kind of pounded the nail again last week that as a buy and hold investment only, like I'm just going to buy it and sit on it, over the last couple of years, real estate has not performed as well as other asset classes. Okay. That's just the truth. It's just the way it is. All right. And so what I wanted to today was to kind of revisit the real estate component of the conversation and bring some good news, because there is good news. And I think there's a lot of opportunity. And this is what, the wheelhouse that most of you are in. And I think that the kinds of things I want to talk about today are concepts that will play in all the markets from Ketchum to Kelso, which I try to, help all the people. So that's what we're doing. All right. So I'm going to switch over now to the tablet view for those of you who are eligible for tablet view. And I don't have a handout today, but I'm going to talk about 5 or 6 different things that I think are really important that work to make money as investors in real estate. Okay. And I'm going to start with the one I've talked about a lot, and that is add value to the land. Okay. Now we spent, probably about a year talking about this little development I was involved in. We almost doubled our money in a time when the big people, Redfin and all those kind of folks, are reporting 1% to 2% rates of appreciation. Although Dan, the same thing last year in Ketchum, reported 10% appreciation in your market. But that takes 3 sales, and then all the data is skewed in a small market like that. But anyway, notwithstanding that, adding value to the land, I've been doing this for almost 36 years, has consistently been the one thing, if you can do it, that I think is really a winner and can make money. All right. Now we step back right now and we look at the more macro market, and we understand that the big problem on the supply side is housing units. Okay. And it's not just a problem in big cities. It's a problem everywhere. All right. So what does that teach us? It's a very simple lesson. If you can create something that doesn't exist, you win. Okay, that's all this is. And I don't want to talk to you today about super complex things. I want to talk about pretty simple things, okay? And I think the rub really for a lot of us is, okay, I've told you all this stuff. I showed you how to do it. Now you're actually going to go do it, okay? And that is your relationship with risk. And I am not a licensed therapist, so I can't do that. Even though I seem like one sometimes, I can't do that, all right? You have to find that on your own. But my first message is, if you want to make money in 2026, learn how to add value to the land. Okay, so how do you do that? We've talked about this extensively, but the first thing you want to do is to understand your land use code. And at least in the state of Washington, this has changed pretty significantly in the last couple of years. Okay, density is increasing. Legislatures, cities, counties, and planning districts have said, we want to put more housing units in the same area. So that's an increase of density, right? What that will do generally is that will allow you to put more footprint on the same space. It'll also allow you to create new lots that didn't previously exist, okay? All that kind of stuff. The rules, I'll use it that way, the rules are really about let's create more housing units, and that begins with the land. So if you can add value to the land, you win, okay? Now, I'm going to just do a quick review here, because I talked about this before, of a couple of the folks that you need to get to know if you're going to walk down this metaphorical road, okay? So the most important person is the planner of jurisdiction in your area, city, or county, sometimes referred to as the director of community development. Another really super important person to have is a surveyor. If your project is conducive to that, then there's an engineer. And I'm going to also put here public works, because I've talked about that as well. So the planner and public works are both public officials, surveyor, engineer, private people, okay? If you're going to work on the land side of real estate, those are basically the four folks that you're going to be around a lot. So if you've never done this before, and I've said this a million times, you need to go meet these people in your area. Just a 20-minute meeting, pass them a business card. This is who I am. I'm interested. Can you tell me what's going on? What do you do for the surveyor and the engineer? How much do you charge? You start building relationships. Okay. So this is one of the ways that you become valuable in your marketplace, is that you know who's who in the zoo. Okay. And I'm not going to go through the whole land development process. We've talked about that before. I might go back and do another one later this year. But that's the first thing I'm putting on your radar is, can you wander around your area and understand parcels of land that can have value added to them? And let me add one other thing before I go. Just another kind of subset here. Understanding something about your utilities. That's super important. And what I have found in the great state of California is that when they want to limit development, they just don't give you a water meter. That's what they do. Other jurisdictions will have problems with sanitary sewer. Okay. You can usually get power pretty easily. That's not a problem. But the water sewer thing, that's a pretty big deal. Those can be bottlenecks for your idea. Okay. So check that stuff out. Public works and planning, those are the people that know. Okay. All right. So that's my first pro tip to create value as an investor in real estate in 2026. My second pro tip is what I'm going to call weird bedroom configurations, configs. Okay, what do I mean by this? What I mean is something like this. Go into your MLS and look up something like this. I'm just going to make this up. A 2,000 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. What's weird about that?
One bath.
For the amount of square footage, it's really big given the beds and baths, okay? Now, having worn a tool belt for a long time and built several bathrooms, I can tell you as a matter of fact that it is way easier, way cheaper to build a bedroom than it is to build a bathroom. Okay? Pete can probably attest to that. So when I was doing more of the construction work side of things, the contractor stuff, we could build bedrooms. This is like 15, 20 years ago for about $5,000. Okay. Throw up a wall, put in a door, a closet, a window. Not that difficult, obviously, depending on the existing space configuration. Bathrooms 2-3 times more because the plumbing and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at any market, and I've done this enough over the years, for a $5,000 or $10,000 investment, if you can just add a bedroom and do a flip, you can make $100,000 pretty easily. Okay, that's the difference in the appraised value final valuation of, in my example, a 2-1 versus a 3-1. Okay, now there's not a ton of these out there, but they're out there. Okay, so I'm talking about taking existing structure and adding value to it. Okay, this has always been a money-making deal. Okay, now I've bought and sold and remodeled 5 houses, and I've taken them down to the studs and brought them back up. I've done new roof. I've built bathrooms. I've done all this kind of stuff over the years, and I'd have to add it up, but I probably made almost $1 million doing it. Okay, I mean, I have to add it up, but I've done really well doing it. So this can be a very lucrative way, in my opinion, to continue to participate in the existing market and not have to get all involved in land stuff. Okay, but here's the key. And I think it really starts with a mindset. And the mindset is, how am I going to add value? And that's not just some dumb cliche from a guru. What I'm saying is, what can you do to this property to make it worth more? And probably the biggest asset that any experienced broker has is understanding final value. Okay. If you can understand that, if Christine can go, look, I know in my market that there's $100,000 of spread in here, or any of you, I'm just using her as an example, and I can do it for $20,000, I just made $80,000. And those deals are out there all day long. But there's 2 things you've got to understand. And the most important one is, what can I sell it for? Figuring out the expenses of doing it isn't that difficult, although there is a variable, which is, every time you pull a wall down, oh my God, didn't know all that shit was in there. Now my cost to my project is doubled. I mean, that's just remodel. But notwithstanding that, knowing that future value, huge benefit that all you guys know, because this is what you do. And you have information, knowledge, and that's a skill set that others don't have. Okay, so use it to your advantage, or your client's advantage, or both, or whatever it is. Okay. All right, moving on to my awesome tablet. Hopefully more of you can see now.
Hey, Joe, I have a quick question for you.
Yep.
Are you talking about adding square footage to an existing structure or reconfiguring interior walls?
Well, it's cheap to reconfigure interior walls. If you can push the foundation out, God bless you, but that's going to increase your time and money significantly.
Exactly. Okay. I agree with you.
Yeah, good. At least we agree on that. That's good. Okay. Number 3, you may or may not have thought of. I've started doing some more research on this in 2025, and I'll tell you why I'm so bullish on this. Tiny houses. Okay. If you guys go on the Amazon and look up tiny house, you'll see that you can buy prefabricated, finished homes. They're not big, they're tiny, but they're like $30,000 or less. They're like $20,000 to $30,000 for a whole bloody house with all the stuff in it. So if you can go back to your land use person and say, hey, land use person, which is your planner, as I'm talking about, director of community development, I've got this idea Can I come by and talk about my idea? Sure you can. I'm a public official. That's why I'm here, to serve the public. And I don't charge for meetings. Okay, not those kind anyway. Go in there and just say, hey, I got this parcel. I'm going to go back to my awesome tablet here for a second. And I say, it looks like this because it's a square. And if I bring in a road that has a cul-de-sac, can I just make like lots and put little houses on them going around like this? You see what I'm saying? Just that kind of thing. You got to be able to get in and get out. I mean, that's part of it. But something like that. And just tiny, 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 tiny. Okay, now there's a term I'm going to write here. It's called air, AIR condominium. Air condo, okay? I don't know a lot about these, but I've talked to a land use attorney about them. He's done several of them. That is a way in certain jurisdictions to create an entire plat without creating a plat. It's essentially an HOA. So you have to have a survey, but it's like 1,000 miles an hour faster than going through the traditional process. You just need to make sure that your lender would see each segregated parcel as fee simple for lending purposes. But if you can do that, air condo that thing and drop a bunch of tiny houses on it. I mean, let me just ask you guys this, okay? So Jeff, I'll start with you, Jeff or Pete, because you guys kind of work in somewhat the same area. If there was a fee simple 800 square foot brand new house for sale in your market, not a great house, it's a manufactured home, but it's like 700 square feet for one person and it's brand new, what could you sell that for? What do you think? What's the price tag?
Probably, depending on where it is, 800 to $1 million.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And Christine, what about in the great state of the Tri-Cities? Because now she's moving to California, by the way.
Christine and I are like, what? I'm kind of sitting here going, what? We have 1 bedroom, 1 bath prefabs, which these are the ones that were brought in 1955, 357 square feet that are selling for 240 if they're all redone. And these prefabs, keep in mind, were built with 2x1 construction.
Yeah,
you
that's
can't
the
even
60-year-old house in the Tri-Cities where it gets hot and cold. Those
and
new
yeah,
ones are to code.
you can't even put electrical outlets in the wall because the walls are so thin.
Yeah.
They were brought in on rail cars. And then
Those are a scrape for most people, but are you guys starting to see my point here?
Yeah.
yeah, 250,000.
Okay, it's a huge spread. Okay, and it starts with going and talking to your land use planner and saying, hey, I got this idea. What zone am I talking about? And they'll sit there with you with the map and go here, 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 or not, or whatever your area is. And then you're like, oh, I got 2 areas. Sweet. I know where those places are. Then you walk down the hall and go talk to the public works guy and go, hey, I got this idea. What do we got to do about water sewer here? And they go, well, you got to do this, that, and the other thing. Okay. Then you go talk to your contractor guy. Well, I got to do this, that, and everything. How much is that? Well, it's this price. Okay. So you put that on your awesome Desert Pencil spreadsheet. And what you can do is build an entire pro forma. It's actually pretty simple to do. Put a contingency in, put your closing costs in, all that kind of stuff. And again, I say, you know the top line. You know what your exit is. Okay, so if we just go back to my dumb little drawing here on my super awesome tablet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, that worked out pretty well. 10 houses. Okay, if I can sell those for let's just say $500,000 a piece, that's $5 million. Okay, and I can tell you, because you can go right on the Amazon and look them up, you can get those houses for 30 grand.
I
So
have a
just a sec.
question
So
about
where do we create the value, people? We create the value in the land. Go ahead, Christine.
So for lending purposes on something like that, because obviously there's not going to be any comps or anything like that. So are you carrying those notes, or do you find
I'm getting
set
there.
lenders that are going to require an 800 credit score with 25%, 30% down? What are you doing lending wise to
Well,
get that?
I'm doing two things. So I'm going to jump ahead here and make a later one a current one. Okay. For those of you who can see my tablet, how's it going so far? Working out okay? All right, awesome. Number 4, you want to find financial partners. Okay. Now, this is a tie-in, and I'll just put number 5 here. You guys need to take Does It Pencil again. Because all the stuff we've talked about, all of you that have taken this is how you can lay out the paperwork and go, here is your return on investment, Mr. Investor, however you choose to do it. Now, Christine's question was, what about exit strategy? Well, you just go out in the world and find lenders that are willing to take people out fee simple. The only thing that I wouldn't know, the only thing I'm a little bit concerned about that I said is the air condo thing. I mean, if you do a plat, that's different. Okay. But you can make that work. There's some lender that'll fund on that. They'll fund on that in theory. It's not hard money, because hard money would never go that long. But you can find money out there, probably with a private bank. It's probably going to be a portfolio lender. Might be a little bit higher rate. But you got lots of room to play with on the spread on the profit. You as the seller can buy down that rate pretty significantly and still make a tidy sum. Or how about this? Treat it like a mobile home park and just do land leases. You can do that too. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there that can scrape together 30 grand. What if you say, plop it on my awesome little private development here, okay, and I'll charge you X per month on a land lease. Then you turn it into a trailer park. And that creates passive income that you are not finding in a lot of other real estate investments these days, but people want that. And the beautiful thing about a land lease is that if the tenant defaults, then the improvements on the property revert to the landlord. Free house.
Yeah. Trailer parks in Kitsap County are upwards of $1,000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Bucks a month.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, this is the stuff that I teach you how to do, is how to take all those numbers and turn them into that one number. So you can go to the investor and say, you know, I can give you a 20% return on your money for the next X years, or however you're going to structure it, right? But that's what you learn in Does It Pencil, is how to take all that stuff and turn it into what I call a one number answer. Okay, I'm going to just pause there for a second. I know you guys pretty well. You know me reasonably well. And the one thing I cannot do is be your therapist and break you out of your comfort zone. And doing this kind of stuff is going to be that for some people, and I recognize that. Okay? Baby steps. Okay? Don't put your capital out there. Use other people's money. But you have to bring something to the game. And if you're not bringing money, you got to bring knowledge. Okay? Everybody's got to bring something. And I would argue that most of you have knowledge that a lot of people don't have and are willing to put up money for. That development I got involved in, my friend, he's like the king of Lakewood, and I grew up there, but he knows all the stuff. He's built hundreds of apartments there. He's got the Rolodex. I don't. So I brought the money. And I was glad to do that. I mean, I almost doubled my money in a year. Why wouldn't I? And there's a lot of people out there. See, this is the thing. There's not a lack of money in the world at all, unfortunately. there's a lack of people that understand how to take capital, deploy it, and make a profit. That's what's lacking. And I'm saying in the real estate space, it's different than the other investments we've talked about. It's different than the metals. It's different than the stocks because there's much more control in the real estate thing. Okay, you're much more the master of your destiny than you are at the other assets. The other assets, you're like, God, hope this works. Or, I'm a real believer in the American economy, as I've said I am, and I am. But the real estate thing's different. Because with the real estate thing, you can go, all right, I know what I can sell these for, and not just go about assimilating my costs and the spread is my profit. You can figure that out before you drop a dime on the table. You can. Can't do that with other investments, but you can do it with this one. Okay. I'm going to create another awesome little sheet here. And then I'm going to bring you my last little bit of wisdom, which is 156. For those of you who can see it, how's the tablet working so far? You able to see it and read it? Is it manageable?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The other thing that's cool about the tablet is since it's all digital, I can save all the notes, PDF them, and then just blink, send them out.
Hey, Joe,
Okay.
just to comment on that, I think a white background with black text is works better on the tablet. That's just my opinion.
Oh, do you? Okay. I'll work on that technological. Do you have an extra 9-year-old laying around that can help do that? Because
Walk down the street.
yeah, right. Help me with my tablet. Something like that. Okay. So another thing, and I've talked about this, and I was going to get involved in this, and I still might. I just haven't yet. But I'm gonna do another topic here. Oh, great. Thanks, Jeff. You just got me all screwed up here. Now let me get back to where I need to be. Okay, that. Okay, here we go. What's cool about this little pen thing, it's got a little eraser built into it. Okay, number 6. I'm going to put assisted living and memory care. All right. So this topic in real estate is really it's pretty much a full-time job if you're going to do it. But boy, if you can solve this riddle, you can make a bundle of money. You can make a bundle of money, huge amounts. Okay. Now, different jurisdictions, states, cities, that kind of thing, they have their own deal. But I ran a pro forma on this a couple years ago, and we were looking at buying a house for like $800,000. Okay. And it was a 6-bedroom. I think it was a 2-bath, 2.5, something like that. Okay. So it wasn't like a little cheap house, but it wasn't an extravagant thing either. And we looked at making 5 of the rooms available for clients because one of the rooms we'd have to keep for staff. And we were not looking at, there's different levels of care depending on how you do this. So we looked at like the lowest level, like they haven't lost their mind yet. They can get around. They can do their own laundry. They just need someone to kind of babysit, cook for them, make sure they don't OD on their meds. That's like the lower level of care. And the reason we looked at that is because state licensing requires certain levels of personnel depending on the level of care. And that's just the whole management thing that I just was like, no, I don't want to get into that. That is not my deal. I'm not interested. But you can hire 1 or 2 CNAs, certified nursing assistants, that are like $25, $30 an hour. They work in shifts. You give them a place to live, give them a bit to eat. And we started calling around and finding out what comparable facilities were charging people. They were charging between $8,000 and $15,000 a month. for a room to sleep in and some food, and that's it. So then I got together with some in the food business, and we did a whole like average cost of meal planning menu deal. And when it all sort of trickled down to the end, we were making about $50,000 a month off this deal. Okay, so I'm telling you, people, this is lucrative stuff. But
It's the last
I don't
great
think it's a
wealth
side
transfer.
hustle. I'm sorry.
It's the last great wealth transfer.
Yeah, right.
It is.
Yeah. But I don't think it's a side hustle. I think you really have to be pretty dedicated to this, because one of the hurdles that you have to overcome is the licensing part. These are state licensed facilities, and it's licensure. You don't lose your license, and you're taking care of people. You don't want to be the guy read about in the paper that was abusing the old person. But these two things moving forward in our lifetimes, this assisted living and this memory stuff, these are a thing, and they are not going away, and there is not an oversupply. There's a huge undersupply. Okay, there's a huge demand right now. So that's the other thing that I think in real estate, if you're into it, that you can do it and make good buck and do something good for the world. All right. Dan, what are you going to do in Ketchum? Do you guys know where Ketchum is? You ever heard of the ski resort, Sun Valley, Idaho? I know Jacques has.
Yeah.
So this is America's first ski resort. I went there the first time when I was 11, and then I moved there and lived there for a year after college. I got married there, and then I lived there on and off for 4 winters during the pandemic. So I know the area pretty well. It's about 3 hours from Boise, Idaho, roughly. Okay. And it's a resort, ain't cheap. Don't want to get all the demographics, but it's a small place. There's not a lot of folks there.
Haley.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
Ketchum's just north of Haley.
It's
So there's
it's an amazing place.
Yeah, there's 3 cities in the Wood River Valley. I've lived in all 3 of them. But what do you kind of see as the future of investing in your market, Dan?
Question that I guess 3 parcels of land. They're all in subdivision, but can't be further subdivided as they are currently figured. And then I've got a couple condos that I rent out. I guess I'm looking at trying to get out of the vacant parcels and transfer that into producing properties.
Okay. If I was 30 and living back in Ketchum, there's 2 words that I would invest in. Mini storage. Because there isn't any. It's all full. All of it. You have to drive 20 miles away to this place called Shoshone. And when you get to Shoshone, you'd rather just keep driving through. But it's the only place that has any kind of little mini storage space available. Everything else is full. I've talked to all of them. So that's another great investment thing I didn't add to the list. So, Pete, what about in the great state of where you live?
The Kingdom of Santa Cruz,
Yeah.
which is in the Kingdom of California.
It
It's crazy here in terms of even trying to go into the planning department. It's like going to the DMV on steroids. I mean, the culture in our county, as far as any kind of development or building, is so incredibly difficult. It's funny. I have a good friend of mine that started a project 5 or 6 years ago, and it looked like it. I mean, this guy's a really smart guy. Does it pencil? I mean, he talks your language, does pencil. The guy, and he fought the county on this thing for 5 years, ended up selling the project to another developer who now has it back on the market for less than they bought it for. And I mean, that's what we're fighting here. And there's no land, there's nowhere to, I mean, so that's what's intriguing is the idea of going into an existing structure. I mean, the people that seem to be making money in, you know, with any kind of value add is just finding pre-foreclosures, buying them for cash from the person that's got the property, upgrading it and flipping it. I mean, that seems to be the best model, but you got to be a cash buyer to play in that arena.
Mm-hmm. And there's a fair amount of those, because if you've never been to Santa Cruz, you just go over the mountains. I don't know what's the mountains called. What's that little mountain range between you guys and San Jose?
Well, the Santa Cruz Mountains are between Silicon Valley.
Well, there you go, Santa Cruz Mountains, and you're right in Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
There's probably $1 trillion of cash just in that little valley right there.
It's 20 minutes from Los Gatos. And, you know, we've taken on the moniker of Silicon Beach because all the Google, Facebook, Apple, LinkedIn people want to come here and hang out at the coffee shop and go surfing. You know, and so they have driven, and during COVID, when everybody got to work remotely, they just came over and bought, I mean, there's a little place across the street from where I live that, in the early 70s, you could have bought that thing for 40 grand and it just sold for 2 million. I mean, that's, you know, so it's.
Well, we've all got those stories from the 70s for sure.
Yes.
Okay. But the 70s are over, even though we are wishing they weren't. But
We're closing in on the 70s, Joe.
Probably. Yeah, exactly. So I was at the gym yesterday, and in the locker room, there was these two guys talking. And this one guy was probably as big as me, tall, but he probably had at least 150 pounds on me. He was a big, big, big dude, and he had a giant belly, just huge. And he's talking to other guys. He goes, well, I'm in shape. It's just the shape that I'm in. And he was the one that said it, so it's pretty funny. Yeah, we are getting into our 70s. But anyway.
No, I was talking about the
value add.
70s.
Oh, okay. Value add. All right.
Imagine what real estate, Joe, let me ask you this. Where do you think things are going to be in 2070, you know, for the kids that are being born today? You know,
I'll answer that question. I will. There's a book you should read. It's called Demographic Cliff. It's by
Demographic which?
Demographic Cliffs. I'll go back to my new awesome tablet here. Demographic Cliff. Like you're going to fall off the cliff.
Yeah, got it. That's
that kind of liquid. So this is by Harry S. Dent, D-E-N-T, Jr. That's the guy's name. Okay. So Harry S. Dent Jr. is a futurist. And there's two things I like about him. One is he's really smart. He's a Harvard guy. And the other thing is he backs everything up. He's not just like, you know, Mr. Ouija board. Remember those black 8-ball things we had when we were kids, and you kind of go out and go, oh, that's my future. He's not like that. He backs stuff up. And I read Demographic Cliff about, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago, whenever it was. And two interesting points. One is the United States economy is paralleling Japan, but behind by 20 years. So our economies are moving in tandem. We're just 20 years behind in terms of interest rates and that kind of thing. And the other thing he talked about with real estate is that we're going to come to a point of inflection where there are more dyers than buyers. Okay, so the population's going to go down as baby boomers continue to pass, and then we have this hole in the demographic strata. Okay, and what's going to happen with that, he argues, is the real estate prices are going to come way down because supply will largely outstrip demand that way. You know, this thing, I've talked about it a little bit, this demographic thing, and we're in this moment in history right now where there's this phenomenon of young men between, like, say, 24 and 32 who are isolated, not dating, not having sex, not starting families. And it's creating this huge demographic hole that will be a generation. There's a guy named Scott Galloway who's a professor at NYU, and he's from Southern California. And he's been very popular on the YouTube and social media about this. And it's a demographic phenomenon. So your question, Pete, about what do I think is going to happen in the future, demographically, if we're building all this housing and then suddenly we don't have as many people, prices come down. Now the question becomes, and it's a policy question, do we backfill it with people from other countries? That's just more humans backfilling existing supply, and I don't know what the future will bring. Now, if we didn't have this demographic blip and we just kept making more and more and more and more and more people, well, then it's just going to be harder and harder and harder to get a house. But demographically in the macro, that's not what's happening. Okay. But to counterpoint that, what's also not happening is there's no more Santa Cruzes being invented.
Nope.
Okay. So, little gems of the earth, like the central coast of California,
Or Haleys or Ketchums.
Exactly. So this is why we see gentrification and redevelopment in places where there's natural phenomenon that cannot be changed, like Bald Mountain, which is where Sun Valley is, like the ocean front of Santa Cruz, like the waterfront of Seattle. Okay, you're not making any more of that. So you have to take the existing land and reconfigure it to suit future human needs. And that's another way to make money. Christine, what are you doing in the Tri-Cities?
Oh, I have so many things I want to do. Okay, so the first thing I did want to ask you, have you heard anything about the metered well on people's well that they're trying to start that program where they're managing the water off of private wells?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that happening in Santa Cruz, in that the county is now requiring that, there's way more stringent rules about wells than there ever have been. And initially it's, now it's at the point where it's like getting a sewer inspection, or a septic inspection. Started with sewer lateral inspection, that went to septic inspection. Now it's well inspection, and these are all county requirements. And so I think that the next step, to your point, is probably, some kind of monitoring of the well.
They're doing a pilot program in Benton City, which is a small rural area just outside of Tri-Cities. It's one of our little suburb, I guess is a good way to put it. It's a rural area. That's going to cause a lot of our rednecks out here to throw a fit because, we have a lot of those people that have private wells that if the Department of Ecology, the county, anybody tries to come put a meter on their private well, they're going to be
Shot.
Yeah, probably.
They don't want no damn, you don't want no damn revenuers coming around, right?
Right. We don't even let the assessor. My husband has run the assessor off of our property every time he sees it. And now whenever I look at the assessor site to see our new photos, he's like sneaking around. I don't know where he parks, but he sneaks around our shop, sticks his camera out, takes a picture, jumps back in his car and leaves. Because legally they can't come on our property, and we're about a third of a mile off the road. So he can't see what we're doing up here unless he actually drives up here.
So is that
Anyway.
Boise?
No, they're in Washington State, in central
Oh,
Washington.
Tri-Cities. Yeah, I'm not sure where
Tri-Cities,
Tri-Cities.
yeah. Okay, so what my big idea is, and what my very dear friend who is a teacher for the special needs kids at a local school, and her daughter works for a company that just started here that is placing people with special needs into jobs. We need housing because these are young adults that don't want to live with mom and dad. They have their own jobs, but they are challenged. They shouldn't live on their own because they can't. They can take care of themselves, but they really can't.
Yeah, they need a babysitter.
Yeah, they just need a babysitter and they want to live on their own. They want to be independent, that whether it's um MS or Down syndrome or I don't know, there's all different kinds of issues, I guess, that they have to overcome. And she's been wanting me to find a big, huge house that um we can get for these kids. That and to your point with the her daughter who is placing people, the company that came in, they've only been in business for 2 years and they're getting Medicaid to pay
I was
for.
going to say, there's a lot of state and federal money that you can get on with that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting Medicaid to place these workers, and each one of them, Medicaid pays for everything. Like it's like $5,000 a month that they're getting per person that they place.
Well, it's,
The company.
2.9%, I think it is 2.9 of every dollar that we make, we pay into Medicaid. It's a huge pool of money, huge.
Yeah.
And I'm not
So-
into the politics of all that of the day, but yeah.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think I'm going to really look at that again.
I would totally look at
was-
that, Christine. And I would look at equity positions. And you're the kind of girl that'll do that. You
Oh,
will.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
The other thing that I would do on that, if depending on how far you expand this out, but as I said earlier, the thing about that is you've got to have staff.
and that's what I have. I have the people already that are ready. I got a cook. I got the school teacher that she would drop that job in like
I
2
would find
seconds.
out from, I think it's Department of Health and Services in Washington. It's one of those Olympia people you don't want coming around your property. They're the ones that grant the licenses. And we looked at all this stuff. DSHS, that's what it is. But find out what the licensing requirements are of the staff. And then what I would really look at closely is setting up an ownership structure where the employees could be part owners. And the reason I would do that is it's the golden handcuffs, because the hardest thing about that is keeping that lower level, less paid staff person around, because they're in very high demand as well, especially if they're licensed. But if you make them an owner, give them a piece of an LLC or a corporation or something like that, that's the golden handcuffs. I would totally look at doing that with that kind of a deal. Because the
One
hard
more.
part is managing the staff.
Right. I have one more because I have 40 acres out here and we aren't doing anything with about 25 of it. We only really manage. We used to farm. We used to have cattle. We don't do that anymore.
Right.
But my husband said, because I get phone calls, I've helped a lot of elderly people who are single people that don't really need assisted living, but can't afford housing right now. And he was like, why can't we put a bunch of cabins? He calls them cabins, but essentially tiny homes out here on our property and rent them all out, rent them out for $500-600 a month, something that they can afford. And then we would run a shuttle into town, for groceries or what have you. Our challenges are we are on well and septic system, and the Department of Ecology no longer allows, or not the Department of Ecology, the health department no longer allows multi-units being hooked up to one septic system. The water thing we can do, but we could do a shared well, but having and there's no sewer out here. I mean,
Yeah, I would
It's
go talk to a septic guy.
Okay.
Those guys see, the thing is, or a septic girl, I'm not trying to be, whatever. Those people
no, we don't like
work.
killing poop.
So I'm saying people in the company, but those people work with the public officials all the time. So that's another person in your Rolodex. I think that's awesome. If you can make that work, you're on your way. I think you will be soon the queen of the Tri-Cities Kingdom at the rate you're going.
I'm going to have old people and mentally challenged people. You know what? That'll be my wheelhouse.
It'd be like Woodstock Part 3. I met a guy it was about 8 or 10 years ago. I was doing a little pitch seminar for Desert Pencil for, it's an investor group that was based in Seattle. And I met this guy. It was COVID, so we did it outside a park. But I met this guy, and he just flipped, actually double escrowed, a piece of land up in Snohomish County near Index, which is like the Stevens Pass area. And the parcel was unbuildable because of water problems. And he brought in some technology that turned gray water into potable water, and the county signed off on it. And he bought this property for $50,000 and sold it for like $250,000 because he was able to solve that water accessibility problem on that parcel. So I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. There's new technologies out there that we don't think about, don't know about, that might be able to solve problems as well. So, my closing salvo here is, we started, looking in 2026. Well, I think this is foundational. 2026, 2070, everything in the middle. If you can look at something and understand a problem and solve it, if you understand where the demand is, and if you can fulfill that demand, I think the other thing is, if you just have an intention, I think about this a lot of times. People say that I want to be successful. I want to make money. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Well, nothing. Well, then what's that all about? Right? So we all say, oh yeah, I want to make more money. Okay. Well, then what are you going to do? How are you going to solve a problem? How are you going to add value? These are the things that you need to be baking into your mind. And once you do, the answers will appear. They always do. But I think it's about having that intention about that as well. I can think of right now 3 or 4 students from Desert Pencil over the years who have made millions of dollars off of investing, more than I have. And the reason is because they said, this is what I want to do. And I look and compare to me, I'm like, well, you're not smarter than me, but they had a different intention than I did. So think about your intention. What are you trying to do? Because if you're sure, and you can hold that up against this backdrop of solving problems and adding value, magic will happen. It always does. So think about that. What are you trying to do? All right. We'll see you next week. Thanks for showing up. Happy 2026, everybody. Let's go get them this year. Let's make it a great year. I know for a lot of people, 2025 kind of sucked. So
Yeah.
let's,
You Joe.
yeah. All right. Take care. God bless you.